You grew up with them, Pa, Mr. Edwards, Doc Baker, Harriet Oleson. They felt like family, but many of the actors who brought these characters to life faced struggles that ended in tragedy. These are their final chapters. Lars Hansen actor's final episode. Carl Swenson was already a seasoned actor by the time he joined Little House on the Prairie. He stepped into the role of Lars Hansen, the kindly mill owner of Walnut Grove. His voice carried a weight that fit the part perfectly, since Swenson had also done extensive radio work before television ever made him recognizable. In 1978, fans noticed something striking about the episode There's No Place Like Home, Part 1. It wasn't just the return of familiar characters. It was also the farewell of Swenson himself. He died of a heart attack on the 8th of October, just 8 days before the episode aired. In that very storyline, his character Lars also passed away. The timing shocked viewers and cast members alike, blurring the line between fiction and real life. Swenson's career stretched well beyond Little House. He had appeared in Little Women, North and South, and even voiced Merlin in Disney's The Sword and the Stone. Yet it was his gentle presence on the prairie that gave him one of his most memorable parts. On set, Michael Landon and others spoke of him as reliable, steady, and deeply professional. Having his final scenes air after his death gave his performance an added layer of weight, something fans of the show still point out decades later. The moment Lars Hansen was laid to rest on screen, viewers were unknowingly saying goodbye to the man who had brought him to life. It was an ending no one could have scripted more poignantly, and it marked the first real loss from the Little House family. Percival Dalton's early passing. Steve Tracy joined Little House on the Prairie in Season 6, playing Percival Dalton, the patient husband to Allison Arngrim's fiery Nellie Oleson. His chemistry with Arngrim gave viewers some of the funniest and most heartfelt moments of the later seasons. Fans loved seeing Nellie finally meet her match, and Tracy's dry delivery made Percival an instant favorite. Behind the scenes, Tracy and Arngrim developed a close friendship. She later called him one of the most supportive people in her life. That bond became even more important when Tracy revealed he was sick. In 1986, at just 34 years old, he died from complications related to AIDS. His passing came at a time when the disease was heavily stigmatized, and Tracy's choice to speak openly about his diagnosis was both rare and brave. Arngrim has often recalled how he faced his illness with courage and humor, even in the most difficult moments. She became an outspoken activist after his death, determined to honor her friend by raising awareness and pushing back against the silence that surrounded AIDS in the 1980s. For fans of Little House, Tracy's death hit hard. He had been young, talented, and on the rise. For Arngrim, it was deeply personal, as she lost not only a co-star but also a trusted friend. His brief but memorable role remains a bright spot in the series, proof that even a late addition to the cast could leave a lasting mark. Isaiah Edwards' star lost. The Prairie would not have felt the same without Mr. Edwards. The rough-edged, kind-hearted character carried humor and grit into the Ingalls world. He was a fan favorite from the start, a man who looked tough but revealed a soft core when it mattered most. Off-screen, the actor behind Edwards, Victor French, built just as strong a presence. He not only acted but also directed many episodes, shaping the tone of the series alongside Michael Landon. The two had worked together earlier on Bonanza and remained close friends throughout their careers. French's booming laugh and easygoing style made him popular with the cast, but by the late 1980s his health began to falter. In June 1989, he died of lung cancer at the age of 54. The news stunned both fans and colleagues. Landon himself called French one of the best partners he ever had in the industry, both in front of the camera and behind it. What makes his loss stand out is how closely it echoed Landon's own fate just 2 years later. Two central pillars of Little House were gone before the 1990s even began, leaving a shadow over the show's legacy. Michael Landon's brave goodbye. By the mid-1970s, Little House on the Prairie revolved around a father figure who seemed unstoppable. Charles Ingalls, or Pa, was the glue that held Walnut Grove together. His steady voice, quick wit, and tough resilience turned the series into a family classic. Off-camera, Michael Landon worked at a pace few could match. He starred in the show, directed episodes, and handled writing duties. Cast members described him as a perfectionist, but also as someone who could light up the set with energy and warmth. His control over the series helped craft its lasting tone. That drive carried into his personal life. In 1991, Landon stunned fans by announcing he had pancreatic cancer. He shared his diagnosis openly on national television, telling viewers he wanted to face it without fear. He gave interviews on The Tonight Show, starring Johnny Carson, and spoke candidly about trying to fight the disease. The illness moved quickly. On the 1st of July, 1991, Landon died at age 54. News outlets across the country covered his passing, and tributes poured in from fans who felt like they had lost a member of their own family. Landon's death marked the end of an era. For millions who had grown up watching him as Pa, the loss was deeply personal. His determination to stay strong in the public eye left a lasting impression, one that still defines how viewers remember the heart of Little House. Joe Kagan's quiet farewell. Viewers who watched Little House on the Prairie during its later years will remember Joe Kagan, the former boxer who gave up fighting to settle in Walnut Grove. His story was different from many of the townsfolk. He was tough, yet his character brought heart and dignity, reminding audiences that the Prairie wasn't only about farming families, but about outsiders searching for a second chance. Behind that role was Moses Gunn, an actor with an already impressive resume. Before stepping into Little House, he was known for his commanding presence in theater, particularly with the New York Shakespeare Festival. He earned respect for powerful performances in productions like Othello and The Black Picture Show. Television gave him wider recognition, and Little House allowed viewers to see his gentler side. By the early 1990s, Gunn's health declined due to complications from asthma. On the 16th of December, 1993, he died at the age of 64. His passing didn't receive the same national headlines as Michael Landon or Victor French, but within the acting world, it was seen as a major loss. Colleagues admired him for his range and dedication, whether on a Broadway stage or in a family drama on television. Fans of the show often point to his character's quiet strength. Joe Kagan was a man who carried scars but still chose kindness, and Gunn played him with sincerity. His work stood out because he didn't need many scenes to make an impact. Beloved guest, Billy Barty. Not every familiar face in Little House on the Prairie was part of the Ingalls daily circle. Some appeared only briefly, but still managed to win over the audience. Billy Barty was one of those guests. Known for his small stature and big personality, he had already made a name for himself in Hollywood long before stepping into Walnut Grove. Barty showed up in Season 5 as Owen, later returning as Lou Bates. His scenes were lighthearted, yet he carried a presence that made viewers remember him. Decades of work in film and television had sharpened his timing, and his appearance on the Prairie felt natural, like he truly belonged among the townsfolk. Outside the series, Barty was a pioneer for actors with dwarfism. He founded the Little People of America in 1957, an organization that provided advocacy and community support for those living with similar conditions. His work extended far beyond entertainment, helping to change the way the public viewed little people. By the late 1990s, his health began to decline. On the 23rd of December, 2000, Billy Barty died of heart failure at age 76. Hollywood figures and fans alike praised him not only for his long career, but also for his activism. Doc Baker's last battle. Every small town needs a doctor, and Walnut Grove had Doc Baker. His calm voice and steady presence gave viewers comfort even when his patients faced grim diagnoses. He wasn't flashy or loud, but the character carried authority. That quiet confidence came from Kevin Hagen, the actor who played him for nearly a decade. Hagen was more than just a steady hand on the Prairie. He had built a solid television resume, appearing in Bonanza, MASH, and The Twilight Zone. Still, it was Doc Baker that made him a familiar face to millions. Fans often recall his mix of compassion and dry humor, traits that fit perfectly into the fabric of Little House on the Prairie. In later years, Hagen openly embraced his connection to the role. He attended fan conventions and enjoyed speaking with viewers who still remembered him as the man in the black suit carrying a doctor's bag. To many, he represented the old-fashioned country physician, always available and always kind. In 2004, Hagen was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. He faced it with the same straightforwardness that marked his career. On the 9th of July, 2005, he died at his home in Oregon at age 77. His passing drew tributes from co-stars and fans who remembered the steady doctor who had guided so many storylines in Walnut Grove. Reverend Alden's final curtain. Every Sunday in Walnut Grove, townsfolk gathered to hear a familiar sermon. Reverend Robert Alden was the steady, spiritual guide of the community, appearing in nearly every season of Little House on the Prairie. His role was not about grand gestures, but about offering calm words when others were in turmoil. The man behind the collar was Dabbs Greer, a character actor with one of the busiest resumes in television history. Before joining Little House, he had appeared in shows like Perry Mason, Gunsmoke, and The Twilight Zone. His friendly Midwestern voice made him a natural fit for the role of a pastor. On set, Greer was admired for his professionalism and his ability to slip into any role with ease. While Reverend Alden was gentle and soft-spoken, his other work proved he could play nearly any type of character. That range kept him working steadily for decades. Greer's later years were marked by health challenges. By the early 2000s, he suffered from kidney and heart issues that limited his appearances. On the 28th of April, 2007, he died in Pasadena, California, at the age of 90. News of his passing was met with warm tributes from colleagues who described him as dependable and kind, much like the preacher he portrayed. Jonathan Garvey's mesothelioma fight. When Jonathan Garvey first appeared in Little House on the Prairie, he brought warmth and humor as a farmer who quickly became close to the Ingalls family. His partnership with Charles in both work and mischief gave the series a fresh spark in later seasons. Audiences liked his easygoing nature, and kids watching the show saw him as a reliable, good-hearted neighbor. The man behind Garvey was Merlin Olsen, a former NFL star turned actor. Before Hollywood, Olsen spent 15 years as a defensive tackle for the Los Angeles Rams, earning a place in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. His size and strength were obvious, but his gentle presence surprised fans who only knew him from the football field. On television, that balance of toughness and kindness made him unforgettable. After Little House, Olsen continued acting, with leading roles in Father Murphy and Aaron's Way. He also built a successful career as a sports commentator, becoming one of the most recognizable voices in football broadcasts. In 2009, Olsen was diagnosed with mesothelioma, a cancer often linked to asbestos exposure. He fought the disease for over a year, even filing a lawsuit against NBC and 20th Century Fox over asbestos at filming sites. Despite treatment, his health worsened. On the 11th of March 2010, Olsen died at age 69 inches, Utah. For many, his death was doubly painful because it came so soon after other Little House stars had been lost. Oscar winner Patricia Neal. Few guest stars left as strong a mark on Little House on the Prairie as Patricia Neal. She appeared in the two-part episode Remember Me during Season 2, playing Julia Sanderson, a terminally ill widow who asked Charles Ingalls to find new homes for her 3 children. The storyline was heartbreaking, and Neal's performance gave it striking realism. By that time, Neal was already a celebrated actress. She had won the Academy Award for HUD in 1964 and earned acclaim in classics like The Day, The Earth, Stood Still, and Breakfast at Tiffany's. Her appearance on Little House came after she had survived a series of severe strokes in 1965, an ordeal that left her temporarily unable to speak or walk. Her recovery and return to acting became one of Hollywood's most inspiring comebacks. Fans often point out how much weight Neal carried into her Little House role. Knowing she had faced her own health battles made Julia Sanderson's farewell even more powerful. Viewers still recall the scenes where she entrusted Charles with her children, moments that showcased both Neal's skill and her personal resilience. On the 8th of August, 2010, Patricia Neal died in Massachusetts at the age of 84 from lung cancer. Tributes described her as one of the greats of her generation, a performer who could command the screen whether in a blockbuster or a simple family drama. Ernest Borgnine's guest appearance. Television audiences of the 1970s and 82nds were used to seeing Ernest Borgnine in tough, commanding roles. By the time he stepped into Little House on the Prairie for a guest appearance, he was already an Oscar winner for Marty and a household name thanks to McHale's Navy. His turn on the Prairie showed a different side of him, gentler, quieter, and deeply moving. Borgnine played Jonathan in the two-part special Remember Me, taking in the orphan Sanderson children after Patricia Neal's character passed away. The storyline gave him the chance to play against type, offering compassion rather than authority. Viewers responded warmly, praising how natural he seemed in the role despite being a big-screen star. Away from Little House, Borgnine's career stretched across 6 decades. He appeared in everything from war films to comedies and kept working into his 90s. His trademark was versatility, the ability to swing from gritty drama to lighthearted fun without losing his audience. In July 2012, Borgnine died of renal failure at age 95 inches, Los Angeles. News outlets worldwide carried tributes, celebrating him as one of Hollywood's most enduring actors. For Little House fans, his guest role remains a reminder of how the series could attract respected talent and use them in ways that surprised audiences. Nels Oleson, actor remembered. In a town filled with colorful personalities, Nels Oleson was often the voice of reason. Running the mercantile with his sharp-tongued wife Harriet, he played the straight man to her dramatic outbursts. Audiences loved watching him try to keep the peace, usually with a weary sigh or a quick one-liner. Richard Bull gave the character that balance. He had already built a long career in television, with credits on shows like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea and Mission Impossible. But for millions of viewers, he was forever Nels, the calm shopkeeper trying to survive life with Harriet and their spoiled children. Colleagues often describe Bull as the opposite of his on-screen wife. Catherine McGregor could be fiery and theatrical, while Bull was gentle and soft-spoken. Alison Arngrim, who played Nellie, later recalled that he felt like a second father on set, always ready with encouragement or quiet advice. In February 2014, Richard Bull died of pneumonia in Calabasas, California, at the age of 89. His death was widely reported in entertainment news, and tributes poured in from former castmates, who remembered him as kind, professional, and endlessly patient. Harriet Oleson's last years. Every drama needs a spark, and in Little House on the Prairie that spark was Harriet Oleson. Loud, snobbish, and always scheming, she gave the show its comic bite. Yet behind the scenes, Catherine McGregor, who played Harriet, was nothing like her character. Castmates often said she was warm, funny, and completely dedicated to her craft. McGregor had trained as a dancer and worked in New York theater before moving into television. When she landed the role of Harriet in 1974, it became the defining part of her career. She made the most of it, turning Harriet into a villain fans loved to hate. Week after week, viewers tuned in to see what outrageous stunt or cutting remark she would deliver. Unlike many of her co-stars, McGregor stepped away from Hollywood after Little House ended. She moved into a Hindu spiritual community in Los Angeles and devoted her later years to her faith and to teaching acting. She rarely gave interviews, preferring a quiet, private life out of the spotlight. On the 13th of November 2018, McGregor died in Los Angeles at the age of 93. Former cast members shared tributes online, remembering how much she contributed to the series. For audiences, her passing marked the end of a woman who had defined one of television's most unforgettable antagonists. Alice Garby's later struggles. Alice Garvey entered the series as the wife of Jonathan Garvey, bringing warmth and balance to the new family on the prairie. Prairie played her with kindness and a quiet strength, making Alice a character viewers could connect with right away. Her most unforgettable storyline came in Season 6 during the schoolhouse fire. In one of the show's most dramatic episodes, Alice tried desperately to save the children trapped inside, a scene fans still talk about today. Prairie's career outside of Little House included appearances on The Waltons and Kenan and Kel, but it was Alice Garvey that defined her career. Though her time on the series was relatively short, the role made her a part of the extended Little House family. In her later years, Prairie kept a low profile but occasionally joined reunions and events celebrating the series. Friends and former castmates described her as gracious and caring, someone who stayed connected even when she wasn't in the spotlight. In 2023, Prairie was diagnosed with a brain tumor. She fought bravely for months, but on the 23rd of August, 2023, she died in Norfolk, Virginia, at the age of 78. News of her passing reached fans quickly, and tributes poured in from both co-stars and devoted viewers. Jenny Wilder stars passing. In the final seasons of Little House on the Prairie, viewers met Jenny Wilder, a cousin who came to live with the Ingalls family. She was young, wide-eyed, and eager to fit in. The role was played by Shannon Doherty, who at just 11 years old began building a career that would later make her a household name. Though Jenny only appeared for one season, Doherty made a strong impression. Her character added a fresh perspective to Walnut Grove and showed the series' willingness to introduce new faces even late in its run. Cast members later recalled how natural she was on set, handling dramatic storylines with surprising maturity for her age. After Little House, Doherty went on to find fame in the 1990s with Beverly Hills, 90,210, and later in Charmed. Her career was marked by both success and tabloid attention, but she remained a recognizable figure in American television for decades. In 2015, Doherty announced that she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. She spoke publicly about her treatment, sharing updates with fans as she battled the illness. Despite rounds of therapy and periods of remission, the cancer returned aggressively in 2020. On the 13th of July, 2024, Shannon Doherty died at the age of 53.
One stare stopped a director cold, one scene made censors panic, and one decision nearly ended her career. Gene Simmons didn't hint. She exposed, "This isn't your grandmother's Hollywood story." War-era debut with big impact. Gene Simmons was just 14 when she stepped onto a movie set for the first time. The film, Give Us the Moon. It was a light comedy, but casting directors noticed something deeper in her, a mix of innocence and edge that didn't feel rehearsed. By 1945, she landed a small role in Caesar and Cleopatra, acting opposite Vivien Leigh and Claude Rains. Jean had no formal training, but her eyes stole every frame. Even with just a few lines, critics pointed her out. One review said she had more presence than most stars twice her age. That attention didn't go unnoticed. Back in London, she was already becoming a studio favorite. Directors liked that she followed direction perfectly, but still added something of her own. No one could quite explain it. She was quiet, respectful, but then delivered a performance with a surprising heat that caught people off guard. During this time, Britain was still recovering from war. Rationing was in full swing. But Jean was getting fitted for costumes, stepping onto grand sets and showing up in magazines. For a country looking for escape, she became a symbol of post-war hope and a bit of fantasy. Producers began casting her in roles meant for older actresses. She had the look of a teenager, but the screen presence of a woman who'd lived through something. It made her unpredictable and hard to forget. The studios liked that, so did the public. What really set her apart, though, wasn't talent alone. It was how she made every close-up feel intimate. She didn't perform to the camera. She let the camera come to her. That kind of restraint, especially at 15, felt dangerous in the best way. Ophelia role that shocked all. At only 18, she was cast opposite Laurence Olivier, who also directed and starred as Hamlet. It was a bold choice. Some said she was too young. too unknown. But Olivier saw something in her others didn't. The moment the film premiered, critics couldn't stop talking. Her Ophelia was fragile but intense. The breakdown scene where she spirals into madness hit like a punch. She didn't scream or flail. She barely raised her voice, but her eyes, they told a story no one could look away from. One director on set said, "She didn't act the scene. She became it." That scene became one of the most talked about performances of the year. Some called it mesmerizing. Others said it was too much, too raw for such a young actress. The censors weren't thrilled either. They flagged her emotional scenes as too suggestive, even though she wasn't doing anything explicit. Just her face, sad, broken, and unfiltered, made people uncomfortable. Not because she did something wrong, but because she did it too well. Her performance earned her an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress. It was rare for a British actress that young to get that kind of recognition in Hollywood, but Jean made it look effortless. What no one saw, though, was how tightly controlled the set was. Olivier was known to push actors hard. Simmons was often left exhausted after long takes. Some scenes took over a dozen tries just to get the right version of her breakdown. She never complained. Hamlet didn't just boost her career. It showed the world she wasn't afraid of complex roles. She didn't need flashy lines or big gestures. She used silence, stillness, and just one look. This wasn't a breakout. This was a warning. Jean Simmons didn't just belong in movies. She could change how they felt. Barefoot and bold in Himalayas. Jean Simmons wasn't the lead in Black Narcissus, but she might as well have been. She played Kanchi, a teenage girl from the Himalayas. No lines, no backstory, just movement, emotion, and presence. And it was enough to shake audiences and critics. She wore a thin sari, little makeup, and walked barefoot in most scenes. Her performance wasn't subtle. It was bold, sensual, and totally silent. For someone trained in British restraint, she went the other way completely. Viewers couldn't believe it was the same girl from Hamlet. The censors? They freaked out. A British girl in brownface was already controversial, but it was her physicality, how she walked, how she looked at men, how she moved through space, that made it feel charged. Some scenes were almost cut. Critics didn't know whether to praise her or scold her. What made it even wilder? Jean was only 19. She wasn't experienced in dance or physical theater. She learned everything on the spot, guided by directors Powell and Pressburger. They told her, "Don't think, just feel." And she did. The result was magnetic. Behind the scenes, Simmons was nervous. She worried about looking ridiculous. She hated the heavy body makeup. But when she saw the final cut, she realized she'd done something rare. She made people watch without saying a word. Her performance added tension to a film already full of it. Nuns fighting desire, isolation in the mountains, repressed emotions ready to blow. Jean's character was the spark, the reminder that human want couldn't be hidden forever. She wasn't glamorized. She wasn't polished. She was raw and young and almost too real for the screen. Audiences either gasped or looked away. That role changed everything. From then on, casting directors saw her differently. She could play quiet, yes, but she could also play dangerous. Not loud or messy, but the kind of dangerous that sneaks up on you. Marriage that silenced her voice. She married Stuart Granger in 1950. On paper, it looked like a Hollywood love story. He was a big name. She was the rising star. The press called them elegant, glamorous, perfect. But the truth behind the curtain was less romantic and a lot more complicated. Granger was 16 years older. He was already famous when Jean met him on set. Their chemistry started fast. So did the control. Soon after the wedding, Granger took the reins. On decisions, on deals, even on what roles she took. The studios loved the image. They paraded the couple in magazines. But people close to Jean started noticing changes. She lost weight. She got quieter on set. Her fire was still there, but it felt dimmed. Granger didn't hide his jealousy. He hated how much attention Jean got. When she was offered lead roles, he often stepped in, saying the scripts weren't right for her. Some insiders say he even turned down roles on her behalf without telling her. Their marriage became a talking point, not for romance, but for the tension it created in her career. One studio exec said, "Jean was gold, but we couldn't get to her without going through Stewart." Still, she stayed, at least for a while. She did interviews with a smile. She played the devoted wife, but behind closed doors, she started pushing back. She wanted control over her own contracts. She wanted to work in America. Granger wasn't happy about it. The tension spilled into work. On the set of Young Bess, she reportedly clashed with crew members over last-minute changes made by Granger, who was constantly advising from behind the scenes. By the early 50s, it was clear this marriage wasn't boosting her career, it was stalling it, and Jean knew it. The girl who once shocked the screen in silence was now fighting to speak up off it. She sued Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes didn't hear no very often, but Jean Simmons gave it to him clear, firm, and without a pause. In 1951, she was under contract with the Rank organization in the UK, but Hughes wanted her for RKO in Hollywood, so he bought her contract. At first, it looked like a career jackpot. Bigger films, bigger budget, international stardom. But there was a catch. Hughes didn't want to make her a star. He wanted to own her. He sent her lavish gifts, jewelry, perfume, clothes. She sent them right back. He offered her roles, but only in projects he controlled. Scripts were delayed, promises were broken. Jean was stuck, contractually tied to RKO but barely working. Then came the final straw. Hughes tried to force her into a long-term extension. Jean said no. He pushed harder. She pushed back and sued him. That was a career gamble very few actresses would have dared to make, especially against a man with Hughes' power and reach. The court battle was ugly. She was accused of being ungrateful, difficult, spoiled, but she didn't flinch. Her attorney argued Hughes was deliberately obstructing her career, and he was. The judge sided with Jean. The court granted her the right to make one more film under RKO, but after that, she was free. That final film would be Angel Face. More on that next. The whole ordeal made headlines. Jean had taken on one of Hollywood's biggest moguls, and won. What made it wild wasn't just that she fought back, it was how calm she stayed doing it. No public outbursts, no gossip columns, just quiet, steady defiance. After the case, other actresses started to take note. Simmons had done what they were told was impossible. She stood up to the system without destroying herself in the process. Slip dress scene that stung. Angel Face was supposed to be just another noir, but Jean Simmons turned it into something unforgettable and nearly unwatchable for the censors. Directed by Otto Preminger, the film paired her with Robert Mitchum in a twisted love story full of mind games and manipulation. From her first scene, something felt off. In a good way, she wore a silk slip and moved through the frame like she knew exactly how much control she had. It was quiet, calculated, dangerous. Preminger pushed her hard. Some days, she left set in tears. One scene, where she slaps Mitchum, turned chaotic. He slapped her back, for real, not in the script. The camera kept rolling. That take made it into the final cut. The most talked-about scene was filmed in her bedroom. Jean wore a skimpy nightgown that barely passed code. Her expression? Cold, unreadable, hypnotic. Studio executives tried to reshoot it. Preminger refused. Simmons never apologized. The scene stayed. Critics weren't sure what to make of her. One said she was too still, too unreadable. Another called her performance the quietest form of violence ever filmed. Audiences didn't know whether to root for her or run from her. That's exactly what Preminger wanted. Off-screen, Simmons kept it professional, but distant. She didn't like Preminger's style, but she respected the result. "It wasn't fun," she once said, but it worked. She knew what the role demanded, and she gave it, without blinking. Angel Face didn't do big box office, but it became a cult classic. Directors studied it, actresses copied her stillness, and fans replayed that one-bedroom scene like it was gospel. It proved she could lead a film, and terrify you doing it. This wasn't Gene Simmons the ingenue, this was Gene Simmons with teeth, and once you saw it, you couldn't unsee it. Backless photos stirred a storm. The robe was supposed to be a biblical epic, clean, reverent, traditional, but Gene Simmons made sure it came with a side of scandal, not because of anything in the script, but because of a single photograph. A promotional shot of Simmons in costume, barebacked, turned slightly, eyes locked on the lens, made its way into a national magazine. And suddenly people weren't talking about Roman history. They were talking about that image. She wasn't unclothed, but she didn't need to be. The curve of her back, the look on her face, it was suggestive without trying. It sparked a wave of backlash from conservative groups. Some theaters threatened to pull the film unless the image was censored. The studio quickly ordered retouched versions covering her back with added fabric. Simmons didn't protest. She also didn't apologize. What most people didn't know was that the robe marked the beginning of her freedom. It was her first film after winning her legal battle with Howard Hughes and RKO. No more interference, no more stalled scripts. She was finally in control of her career, or so she thought. Behind the scenes, she was still untangling contract fallout. Though legally free, industry politics meant many producers were hesitant to cast her right away. Her refusal to play by studio rules made her difficult. So even as the robe became a box office hit, Gene was still proving she was bankable and independent. She was also stepping into a new kind of role, the strong, morally complex woman. No longer the wide-eyed ingenue, she now played characters torn by faith, loyalty, and quiet desire. That's what made her stand out in the robe. While others delivered grand speeches, Gene did more with a glance or a pause. Staring down Spartacus with fire. By the mid-1950s, Gene Simmons had mastered the art of subtle danger. She didn't have to raise her voice or storm into a room to command attention. One stare from her could flip the energy of an entire scene, and nowhere was that more obvious than in Spartacus. She played Varinia, strong-willed, patient, deeply loving. But she wasn't just the love interest. She was the emotional core of the film, the quiet resistance behind Spartacus's rebellion. When Kirk Douglas's character meets her, she doesn't beg or flirt. She watches, she listens, and that look, equal parts softness and defiance, spoke volumes. The film was massive, huge budget, massive cast, but Simmons never got lost in the crowd. Even surrounded by warriors and senators, her presence held steady. One key scene in a bathhouse, fully clothed but emotionally bare, had audiences holding their breath. She wasn't there to seduce, but somehow she did. Director Stanley Kubrick said she could do more with silence than most actors could with 3 pages of dialogue. And that was true. She didn't rely on flashy performances. Her strength was restraint, holding back just enough to make viewers lean in. Her chemistry with Douglas was real, on screen at least. Off-screen, things were more tense. Douglas, ever the perfectionist, reportedly tried to direct her at times. Gene didn't bite. She followed Kubrick's lead and stuck to her style, one that didn't need constant rehearsal or rewrites, just space to breathe. What made Spartacus different was that it showed how far she had come. She was no longer being told how to act, dress, or behave. She chose this role, and she shaped it into something bigger than what was on the page. By now, Simmons had developed a signature move, holding the camera's gaze just a second too long. It was never overdone. Just enough to make the audience shift in their seats. That was her gift. Making discomfort feel beautiful. Making modesty feel provocative. Post-divorce roles, no apologies. When Gene Simmons divorced Stuart Granger in 1960, Hollywood expected her to fade into the background. Instead, she did the opposite. She stepped into some of the boldest roles of her career. She wasn't trying to shock anyone, but she was finally calling the shots. And the first move? Elmer Gantry. In the film, she played Sister Sharon Falconer, a preacher with power, mystery, and unshakable confidence. Opposite Burt Lancaster, Simmons didn't flinch. Their chemistry felt electric, even hostile at times. Her character wasn't there to be conquered. She had her own mission and her own secrets. The role marked a shift. This was Jean fully in control. No studio head pulling strings, no husband weighing in, and it showed. Critics called her performance chillingly calm and quietly commanding. Audiences saw a version of Simmons they hadn't before, fierce, focused, and completely in her element. After that, the walls came down. In interviews, she started to speak more candidly. She admitted how controlled her earlier career had been. She talked about being dressed like a doll, told where to sit, when to smile. "I wasn't rebellious," she said. "I just had a brain." She also started choosing roles that mirrored her real-life complexity. In Life at the Top, she played a woman trapped in a cold marriage, giving one of her most emotionally raw performances. Critics noted how much pain she conveyed without raising her voice. Simmons had always known how to make silence speak, but now it screamed. By 1964, she had officially left her ingenue past behind. Her new characters were layered, modern, and sometimes bitter, but never weak. Whether playing women burned by love or cornered by power, Simmons always brought a sharp, grounded realism. Her personal life, she kept it quiet, no tabloid stunts, just work, and that work spoke volumes. Jean Simmons had survived the studio system, defied Hollywood men, and walked away from a toxic marriage. What came next wasn't a comeback, it was her full arrival. TV role that changed everything. In 1983, when most of her peers had faded into cameos or early retirement, Jean Simmons made a move that surprised everyone. She went to television. And not just any TV role. She signed on for The Thornbirds, a sweeping, high-stakes miniseries that would become a cultural event. She played Fiona Cleary, the cold, emotionally distant matriarch of the family. It was a huge shift from the warm, gentle characters people associated with Simmons. Fiona wasn't cruel, but she wasn't loving either. She was closed off, wounded, and quietly ruthless. And Jean played her with absolute control. Audiences didn't just watch The Thornbirds, they devoured it. Nearly 100 million people tuned in. Simmons held her ground against heavy hitters like Richard Chamberlain and Barbara Stanwyck, and in some scenes she stole the spotlight entirely. It wasn't just the lines she delivered, it was how she sat, how she paused, how she looked away at just the right second. For that performance, she won the Emmy. But more than that, she won back visibility. She proved that actresses over 50 weren't just background players. They could lead, they could drive a story, and they could be just as bold, if not bolder, than they'd been decades earlier. Behind the scenes, Simmons was calm, professional, and laser-focused. Younger cast members described her as gracious but guarded. She wasn't there for gossip, she was there to work. One crew member recalled, "She'd walk onto set, say almost nothing, and nail it on the first take." That role capped off her transformation from teenage ingenue to Hollywood rebel, from silent power to full-on matriarch. She had nothing left to prove, but somehow still delivered performances that left audiences stunned. Jean Simmons didn't reinvent herself, she just kept showing up exactly as she was, smart, subtle, and impossible to ignore. And by the time The Thornbirds aired, one thing was clear. She never needed to scream to make the whole room gasp.
While millions of people were engrossed in the incredible movies and shows produced by the industry, both in their homes and cinemas, they remained oblivious to the darkness lurking within. Beyond the glamour and talent that Hollywood exuded, there was an underworld that was very different from what was being shown in the media. From rumors of murders to the mistreatment of actors and numerous atrocities that remained buried and far away from the public eyes, Hollywood was proved to be a dark and chaotic place. Well, let's just say nothing is hidden under the sun, because some of these dark and disgusting things that happened in the industry have now been confirmed to be true. The horrific fake film shoot. Anyone who knew about the film studio MGM knew that they were notorious for their dark deeds and would do almost anything to make a scandal disappear, and in order to protect their own. They had the money, the power, and the fixers, but when a biographer, David Sten, began to investigate them, he uncovered some secrets that they kept buried for years.
One of these was what happened to a 20-year-old dancer named Patricia Douglas at a 1937 MGM party. According to David Sten, MGM did everything in their power to suppress the scandal when it erupted. They even went as far as hiding evidence and doing all they could to silence the victim, but it seems like her innocence screamed louder than their efforts, and soon enough their deeds were brought to the light. Although MGM was successful at burying the story back in the 1930s, David Sten found some evidence that proved that Patricia's story was real. She wasn't the young wannabe star trying to take down a powerful studio. She was a young, vulnerable girl whose innocence was taken away at an MGM party. In the words of the biographer, I managed to find old newspaper coverage, previously unseen photos, damning studio documentation, long-forgotten legal records, privately shot cinematographic evidence hidden in an MGM film vault, and, most amazing, Patricia Douglas herself. After 65 years of silence, she was finally able to tell her side of the story. According to Patricia Douglas, that incident completely broke her and turned her life upside down. Before that day, she was living a normal life and was already a part of the entertainment industry. Her love for dancing opened her up to opportunities, and at the age of 15, she had already appeared in 2 classics. Her mother was doing well financially, so she didn't need to work. She only took on a few jobs because she enjoyed it and wanted to keep herself busy. This chestnut-haired lady with porcelain skin would later get a casting call on the 2nd of May, 1937 that changed her life. She had no idea that this call was not what she thought it was, and although she hesitated for a while, she finally said yes. Looking back on that day, Patricia regrets saying yes to that call. In her words, "They never mentioned it was for a party, ever. I wouldn't have gone. Oh God, I wouldn't have gone." Although she and hundreds of other girls were invited for this so-called shoot, they would soon discover that this was no film shoot. It was a party that Louis B. Mayer had, organized to celebrate his salesman for a job well done, but this was no ordinary party. It was going to an alcohol-fueled party where all manner of atrocities would happen. The studio had become the greatest studio in Hollywood, and they bagged distribution deals that will keep them on top for several years. This party is their way of celebrating. Patricia Douglas was one out of the 120 young female dancers that received the casting call. It will surprise you to know that a well-known casting director made these calls so the girls had no idea what was about to happen. They were supposed to be dressed in fitted cowgirl outfits, and as soon as they got to the studio, they were transported to an unknown location for this party. On getting there, Patricia saw over 300 men partying, smoking, and taking all kinds of substances. She didn't see cameras, a crew, or lights. Patricia immediately started to feel uncomfortable, as she had never had any sexual encounter before. She certainly didn't want to be in such a wild party. Sadly, there was no way any of the girls could escape. As the party went on, a particular salesman called David Rose began to admire Patricia. He pretended to want to teach her a dance step, and before she knew it, he and other friends held her down and poured liquor down her throat. Soon enough, Patricia began to feel sick, and when she went outside to get some air, David Ross dragged her to the parking lot and took advantage of her in one of the cars. Interestingly, a parking attendant witnessed the whole thing, but he later denied. Patricia did not keep quiet about what happened. She told her mother about it, and they were able to hire an attorney, but every legal step she took proved futile. No one believed her. One can only imagine how many other girls went through a similar experience that night. Patricia, the only person who was bold enough to speak up, was shut down and called a liar by MGM. With their connections, money, and power, they were able to shut the case down. Among the evidence that was later found was a letter from publisher William Randolph Hearst to Louis B. Mayer saying, "Shut this down. Make her stop." Do you realize how damaging this is to the whole movie picture industry? With the help of biographer David Sten, she was able to document what happened to her in the documentary titled Girl 27 before she passed on. The director with weird sexual preferences. After several decades of whining, dining, and having wild sexual encounters with celebrities, Scotty Bowers published a book titled Full Service: My Adventures in Hollywood and the Secret Sex Lives of the Stars. Bowers, who was said to have been a go-to guy for setting up all manner of trysts for some of Hollywood's most famous stars, decided to pen down all the escapes that these stars were involved in. While some of his celebrity clients were closeted gays and lesbian, other clients liked things that were weird and freaky. The revelations she made about Charles Laughton left everyone in shock. To the rest of the world, Charles Laughton was a brilliant director. He was a highly respected and influential figure in the film industry. Charles Laughton was an English stage and film actor as well as a director. Truth be told, his talent was recognized early in his career, and he gained fame for his versatility as an actor. He excelled in portraying a wide range of characters, from dramatic to comedic roles. Most people who were entertained by his works revered him. Some of his most notable performances include his portrayal of the hunchbacked bell ringer Quasimodo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1939, Captain Bligh in Mutiny on the Bounty in 1935, and his chilling role as the tyrannical barrister in Witness for the Prosecution in 1957. Everyone saw him as a talented man who was laser-focused on his career, but no one knew the secrets he was keeping from the world. In addition to his acting prowess, Laughton also ventured into directing, where he demonstrated a keen eye for storytelling and visual composition. His directorial debut was with the film The Night of the Hunter in 1955, which has since been recognized as a classic of American cinema despite its initial commercial failure. Laughton's impact on the film industry was profound, and he was highly respected by his peers. Throughout his career, he received numerous accolades, including an Academy Award for Best Actor for his role in The Private Life of Henry VIII in 1933. Apparently, when he was achieving all these, he was busy behind closed doors doing things that would have shocked his fans. According to Bowers, Charles's secret sexual activities were very different from that of his celebrity friends. He said Charles was into scat proclivities. Bowers revealed that Charles liked it when his sexual partners released on him, and on some occasions, he spread these substances on a sandwich and ate it. Bowers didn't judge this act, as he was an open-minded person who believed that people should do whatever they wanted, and in his words, "The practice certainly didn't turn me on, but it was patently clear that it was regarded as a normal and acceptable part of sexual activity by its devotees, with Charles Laughton being one of them and Ty Power another. So who was I to judge? To each his own." Who would have thought that this talented man was involved in such sexual acts behind closed doors? Although there were already rumors about what he was involved in, Bowers' book confirmed the rumors and went into detail about what this celebrated director was doing behind closed doors. Charlie Chaplin and underage girls. He was a highly successful actor who was well respected in the industry. He was known to have inspired many other actors, but when rumors began to circulate about his preference in women, a lot of people lost respect for him. They simply couldn't believe it. Charlie Chaplin, a towering figure in the world of comedy, mesmerized audiences with his timeless humor and poignant performances on the silver screen. Yet, behind the laughter, his personal life was shrouded in controversy, particularly concerning his romantic entanglements. Soon enough, his secret preferences when it came to women became a subject of both fascination and scrutiny. Truth be told, Chaplin's predilection for marrying significantly younger women was evident throughout his life. His first marriage to 16-year-old Mildred Harris at the age of 29 set a pattern that would repeat itself. Despite the considerable age gap, Chaplin seemed drawn to youthful exuberance and innocence. However, his marriages were not devoid of tumult. Harris and Chaplin's union dissolved after 2 years. It would surprise you to know that he went on to date and marry yet another girl that was younger than him. The pattern persisted with Chaplin's subsequent marriages. At 35, he wed 16-year-old Lita Gray, embarking on a controversial journey that raised eyebrows even in the permissive circles of Hollywood. Their marriage was mired in scandal, with Gray alleging that she was coerced into matrimony due to her pregnancy with Chaplin's child. The marriage ultimately ended in a highly publicized divorce, amplifying the whispers surrounding Chaplin's romantic exploits. People found it difficult to reconcile the man he was in Hollywood to the man that was getting married to underage girls. In 1932, Chaplin found himself entangled with 22-year-old Paulette Goddard, who later revealed that she had initially misrepresented her age, claiming to be 17 when they first met. Despite the revelation, Chaplin pursued the relationship, culminating in marriage when Goddard was 26 and he was 47. Their union endured for 6 years, characterized by both moments of bliss and strain, emblematic of Chaplin's tumultuous romantic life. However, it was Chaplin's fourth and final marriage that garnered the most attention and controversy. At the age of 54, he wed 18-year-old Una O'Neill, the daughter of esteemed playwright Eugene O'Neill. This union, though met with incredulity and raised eyebrows, endured the test of time, remaining intact until Chaplin's passing. O'Neill's youthfulness and Chaplin's status as a renowned artist of his era magnified the intrigue surrounding their relationship. Chaplin's preference for younger women, coupled with the circumstances of his marriages, fueled speculation and gossip within the industry. While some viewed his actions as indicative of a romantic spirit unbound by societal norms, others condemned his behavior as exploitative and predatory. The allegations against Chaplin ranged from accusations of manipulation to outright abuse, with his choices seemingly confirming the suspicions harbored by his detractors. There were even rumors that he fled to a different country at a certain point in time in order to avoid certain statutory laws. It seemed like he couldn't help himself, but most people who heard about it were disappointed. They couldn't believe that such a respected man was involved in such. However, despite the condemnation he got from others, he didn't hide the fact that he preferred underage girls. She adopted her own child. Before he became a Hollywood star, it was said that Clark Gable was friends with some questionable people. Perhaps this was why he reached out to a fixer when he discovered that he got a young actress pregnant. What was done after that forever traumatized the child and made her grow up believing that she didn't have parents. If anyone was the epitome of Hollywood masculinity, it was Clark Gable. This charming, leading man-made heart swoon across the globe. He was the kind of guy you'd imagine tipping his hat as he sauntered into a room exuding confidence. And in 1934, he was smack dab in the middle of one heck of a scandal that involved a young actress named Loretta Young. She was a rising starlet with doe eyes and a smile that could light up the silver screen. At just 22, she was already making waves in Hollywood, capturing hearts with her talent and beauty. But little did anyone know she was about to become entangled in a scandalous affair with none other than the dashing Clark Gable. A 34-year-old Gable, already married, diving headfirst into a clandestine romance with the much younger Loretta Young. Their flirtation soon turned into a scandalous affair, and to complicate matters further, Young became pregnant. It was the kind of situation that could spell disaster for both their careers and reputations. Some reports claim that Gable actually forced himself on the actress and that the sexual activities between them were not consensual. When Clark Gable realized how messy the situation was, he reached out to the one person that could fix it, Eddie Mannix, a fixer with connections deep in the heart of Hollywood. He wasn't just any friend to Gable, he was the kind of friend who knew how to clean up messes, no matter how messy they were. Mannix's solution was as ingenious as it was morally dubious. He orchestrated a plan for Young to fake adopt her own child, effectively concealing the scandal of being an unwed mother. It was a move straight out of the Hollywood playbook. Young, determined to protect her child from judgment, went along with Mannix's plan, confiding only in the inner circles of Hollywood's elite. And so Judy, as she would later be named, grew up believing that Loretta Young adopted her. But as Judy grew older, the truth became harder to conceal. It was difficult to ignore the resemblance between Judy and Clark Gable. Soon enough, rumors began to spread, and people started asking questions. Years passed, but secrets have a way of coming to light. On Judy's wedding day, she confronted her mother, demanding to know the truth, and in a moment filled with emotions and regret, Young finally revealed the truth to her daughter. Judy herself later confirmed the truth in her autobiography, Uncommon Knowledge, laying bare the secrets that had been buried for so long. In the end, Eddie Mannix's solution may have spared his friend Clark Gable from immediate scandal, but it couldn't shield him from the consequences of his actions forever. This decision certainly did not spare Judy from the trauma of growing up without parents. Why Mary Nolan had 15 abdominal surgeries. If you have ever heard about Hollywood fixers, then the name Eddie Mannix certainly rings a bell. He was the one who was responsible for making most of MGM Studios' scandals disappear. Whenever something occurred and it could damage the image of the studio, he would go behind the scenes and clean up the mess before the public got to know about it. However, in July 1935, he was not doing someone else's dirty laundry. The scandal was right at his doorstep. His former lover had publicly accused him of maltreating her and ruining her life. He denied all the allegations, but when her friends and family began to speak up about what he did to her, things got a little complicated and he had to find a solution and find it fast. Mary Nolan, Mannix's ex-lover, was a well-known actress in the 1920s. Truth be told, life and career were marked by both successes and personal struggles. Nolan began her career as a Ziegfeld Follies showgirl before transitioning to silent films. She quickly gained attention for her striking beauty and talent on screen. Mary Nolan, initially performing under the name Imogen Robertson in Germany, began her film career there with Verborgene Gluten in 1925, followed by Die Feuertanzerin, which garnered her favorable reviews and a contract offer from Universum Film AG. She worked steadily in Germany until 1927, declining offers from Hollywood producers until Joseph M. Schenck of United Artists convinced her to return to the United States. Upon her return, Nolan faced scrutiny from the press and women's groups due to her past scandal, prompting United Artists to suggest a name change to Mary Nolan. She made 2 films with United Artists before joining Universal Pictures in August 1927, where she received good reviews for her role in Good Morning Judge. In the same year, she was said to have been involved in a relationship with Eddie Mannix, who allegedly used his connections to help boost her career. Mannix was married at the time, so they kept their affair a secret for as long as they could. Nolan's career received a significant boost when she was loaned to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer for West of Zanzibar in 1928, starring alongside Lon Chaney and Lionel Barrymore. The film was a hit, as was her subsequent loan to MGM for Desert Nights in 1929, opposite John Gilbert, further solidifying her status in Hollywood. However, Mannix and Nolan's affair ended abruptly in 1929. While no one knows for sure why the affair ended, it was said that the actress became an emotional wreck in the following years. Her career began to decline rapidly, and she was said to have displayed erratic behavior on sets. After a long battle with substance abuse and financial problems, her life was in shambles. It was clear that there was a lot of pain buried deep within her, but no one knew what was causing it. It was in 1935 that Mary Nolan decided to open up about what she went through in the hands of Eddie Mannix. Initially, it seemed like a publicity stunt by a desperate actress, but as time went on, people began to see that her claims were not far-fetched from what others had accused Mannix of. According to her, she lived with him in the Ambassador Hotel from the year 1927 to 1931, and they were actively in an affair at the time. As time went on, he began to treat her badly and would even go as far as hitting her and inflicting wounds on her body. She also claimed that he was responsible for the decline of her career and that he allegedly used his influence to ruin her career at a certain point. However, the most shocking part of her story was on the day he attacked her and hit her abdominal area so badly that she had to be hospitalized. The damages he caused were so severe that she had to undergo over 15 surgeries in order to survive. After she sued him, he denied all she had said and claimed that she was using the story to gain fame and sympathy from the public. But despite his claims, Mary Nolan had a solid army of witnesses behind her. Her friends and family revealed he maltreated her during the time that they were together. He also allegedly forced her to terminate multiple pregnancies, and there were times when she had to go on set with bruises because of how badly he hit her. As expected, Mannix did everything in his power to bury the story. It was said that he sent a private detective to her house to threaten her, and this was what made her drop the lawsuit. While there was no concrete evidence, anyone who heard about Mannix's heinous crimes knew that there was at least an atom in Mary's story. In the end, Mannix won and was able to bury a story that could have potentially ruined his image and career.
Everyone loves to blame cancel culture, but some of these people should have been canceled a long time ago. You weren't overreacting. You were underinformed. Here are 10 disgusting celebrities the industry helped you fall for. Sean Diddy Combs' legal battles. He was once the king of hip-hop. Big hits, flashy lifestyle, and a massive fan base. But behind the fame, a string of serious accusations. In 2017, his personal chef said he harassed her and then fired her when she spoke up.
They settled the case in 2019, no details shared. Fast forward to 2023. His ex-girlfriend Cassie filed a lawsuit claiming years of abuse. She said he hurt her, trafficked her, and even blew up Kid Cootie's car. That case also settled fast. Then came the bombshell. In May 2024, CNN dropped a hotel video from 2016. It showed Diddy grabbing and attacking Cassie. You could hear the internet gasp. Diddy responded with an apology, calling his actions inexcusable. But it didn't stop there. By September 2024, he was arrested on serious federal charges, including trafficking-related offenses, organized criminal activity, and unlawful transportation. He said he wasn't guilty and stayed locked up in Brooklyn, no bail. A month later, things exploded. Reports said over 100 people, men, women, even kids, were getting ready to file lawsuits against him. The number? Around 120. Some were underage. It was chaos. In March 2025, another charge dropped: forced labor. He was accused of making people work crazy hours using fear and pressure. Again, he said he was innocent. James Franco's hidden history. He always had a certain charm. He played weird, artsy characters, joked around in interviews, and came off as the cool, harmless guy. But behind that laid-back image was a mess the public didn't see until 2018. That year, 5 women accused him of misconduct. 2 were former students at his acting school, Studio 4, which he ran in Los Angeles and New York. They said Franco used his power to push young actresses into uncomfortable and explicit scenes. Some claimed he removed safety guards during nude scenes and blurred the line between acting and manipulation. Franco denied everything. He told Stephen Colbert on The Late Show that the claims were not accurate. But the internet wasn't convinced, and his silence on social media didn't help. By 2019, 2 women filed a lawsuit. They accused him of exploiting students under the pretense of education. According to court documents, students were led to believe they had a shot at roles in Franco's films if they agreed to intense scenes. Many said they felt pressured, especially in his so-called master class. In 2021, Franco settled the lawsuit for $2.2 million. He didn't admit guilt, but he did later speak out. On a podcast, he said he had struggled with compulsive behavior and acknowledged having inappropriate relationships with students. He called it wrong, but claimed it wasn't illegal. One of the most telling signs came from Seth Rogen. He and Franco were longtime collaborators, but in interviews, Rogen confirmed he hadn't worked with Franco in years and didn't plan to again. No shade, just a clean break. Since then, Franco's disappeared from the spotlight. He's taken on small indie projects, but nothing major. Most of Hollywood has kept its distance. Noel Clarke's collapse. In the UK, he was everywhere. He acted, directed, produced, and even won a BAFTA for Outstanding British Contribution to Cinema in 2021. But the celebration didn't last. Just weeks after that award, The Guardian published a massive investigation, and everything changed. 20 women came forward. They accused Clarke of inappropriate conduct, unwanted physical contact, intimidation, and demeaning language. Some said he secretly recorded audition scenes that involved sensitive content. Others claimed he'd touched them without consent or made cruel comments during shoots. Most of these women had worked with him professionally, on set, in casting, or through his company, Unstoppable Entertainment. Clarke denied everything. He said he never broke the law and never acted inappropriately. But the accusations weren't vague. They came with names, dates, and detailed stories. The Guardian stood by the reporting, and BAFTA quickly suspended his award. ITV pulled the final episode of Viewpoint, his latest drama, right before it aired. Sky, who had long worked with him, cut ties immediately. What followed was a total shutdown of Clarke's career. Projects vanished, offers dried up, His name, once linked to representation and success, became toxic in the industry. In April 2025, Clark tried to fight back. He sued The Guardian for defamation. He said the article ruined his life and claimed the accusations were false and unfair. But the journalist, Lucy Osborne, testified that every story was vetted and the piece was never personal. She said it was about giving people a voice. The court hasn't ruled yet, but the damage is done. Clark hasn't booked a major role in years. His production company stopped operating. Even with the lawsuit, there's been no public comeback, no press tour, no support from the film world. What started as a career on fire crashed hard. And the worst part? It took 20 women stepping forward for anyone to actually listen. Morgan Wallen's never-ending apologies. He went from country music's rising star to public controversy machine, and it started long before most fans noticed. In May 2020, he was arrested in Nashville outside a bar. Charges: public intoxication and disorderly conduct. Nothing career-ending, but not a good look. Months later, he blew his shot at Saturday Night Live after video surfaced of him partying maskless during COVID restrictions. The show canceled his appearance just days before airtime. Then came February 2021. TMZ released home security footage showing Wallen yelling a racial slur after a night out. The backlash was immediate. Radio stations dropped him. His label suspended his contract. The Academy of Country Music barred him from that year's awards. He apologized publicly and promised to do better, but the damage was real. Despite the fallout, Wallen's album sales actually spiked. Some fans claimed cancel culture had gone too far. Others saw it differently, a clear example of someone being rewarded for bad behavior. Either way, Wallen stayed mostly quiet, reappearing months later in interviews saying he'd been doing a lot of soul-searching. But things got weird again. In October 2023, he was seen storming off stage mid-concert without explanation, and in April 2025, SNL brought him back, but not for long. He exited the building hours before the show, leaving producers scrambling. No official reason was given. Social media lit up with fan theories and jokes, but NBC stayed silent. Behind the scenes, sources claim Wallen has become difficult to work with. Others say he just isn't interested in the spotlight anymore. Either way, the pattern keeps repeating. Do something reckless, apologize, go quiet, then resurface like nothing happened. R. Kelly's crimes in plain sight. He was once untouchable. He ruled the charts, sold out arenas, and had megastars lining up to work with him. But behind the fame, a long, disturbing trail that the industry ignored for years. The first red flag? In 1994, Kelly, then 27, secretly married 15-year-old Aaliyah. Her age was faked on the marriage certificate. The union was annulled, but questions started swirling. In 2002, a video allegedly showing Kelly with an underage girl surfaced. He was charged with possessing illegal material involving a minor, but pleaded not guilty. The trial dragged on for years, and in 2008, he was acquitted. That same year, he released more music. Business as usual. In 2017, things exploded again. BuzzFeed published a report accusing Kelly of running a cult, controlling young women and cutting them off from their families. His team denied it. But former associates started speaking out. They described rules, punishments, and disturbing levels of control. In 2019, the docuseries Surviving R. Kelly aired on Lifetime. It featured survivors, parents, and former employees detailing years of abuse. The reaction was massive. Protests broke out. Artists pulled collaborations. Radio stations dropped his music. Finally, people started listening. That same year, Kelly was arrested on multiple federal charges, including organized criminal activity and trafficking-related offenses. The details were chilling: coercion, intimidation, underage victims, and years of cover-ups. In 2021, he was convicted on all counts in New York. In 2022, he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. A separate Chicago trial in 2023 led to another 20-year sentence. 19 of which would be served at the same time. He's locked up for decades. Chris Brown's pattern of violence. His reputation never fully recovered after 2009, and that's because the problems didn't stop there. In February 2009, photos leaked of Rihanna's injuries after Brown assaulted her the night before the Grammys. The images were everywhere. Public opinion turned fast. Brown was arrested and later pled guilty to felony assault. He got probation, community labor, and court-ordered anger management. You'd think that would be rock bottom. It wasn't. In 2011, he allegedly smashed a window at Good Morning America after being asked about the Rihanna incident. The glass shattered near the street, but no charges were filed. His team blamed the media. He blamed haters. Then came the nightclub fights, parking lot scuffles, and assault allegations, year after year. In 2013, he punched a man outside a D.C. hotel. He was arrested and spent time in jail after being kicked out of rehab for anger issues. In 2016, a woman accused him of threatening her with a gun at his home. Police arrived with helicopters and a search warrant. Brown live-streamed part of it on Instagram. No charges were filed, but the spectacle was a media circus. That same year, his former girlfriend Karrueche Tran got a restraining order against him. She said he threatened to kill her. A judge later granted a 5-year order of protection. Then, in 2022, a woman filed a $20 million lawsuit alleging that Brown engaged in inappropriate conduct after giving her an unknown substance aboard a yacht. His team denied everything, and the case was later dropped, but the headlines kept piling up. One ongoing case involves fans claiming they were assaulted during a concert. Another woman says she was injured by Brown's security team outside a venue. Kevin Spacey's House of Cards collapsed fast. His fall was one of the fastest in Hollywood history. One moment he was the face of prestige drama. The next, completely erased from screens. It all started in October 2017. Actor Anthony Rapp told BuzzFeed News that Spacey made a move on him at a party when Rapp was just 14. Spacey's response? He said he didn't remember but apologized if it happened. Then he came out as gay in the same statement. That move drew backlash for trying to deflect with sexuality. What followed was a flood. More than 30 people came forward, crew members, actors, even journalists. They described similar patterns: unwanted touching, inappropriate comments, and abuse of power on set. Netflix cut ties instantly. House of Cards killed off his character and rewrote the entire final season. In 2018, he was charged in Massachusetts for allegedly groping an 18-year-old at a bar. The case fell apart when the accuser stopped cooperating, but the damage was done. He became uncastable. That same year, Spacey released a strange YouTube video in character as Frank Underwood. He looked straight into the camera, blurring fact and fiction, and said, "You wouldn't believe the worst without evidence, would you?" Fans called it creepy. Everyone else called it unhinged. In 2022, he went on trial in the UK, facing multiple allegations of inappropriate physical conduct. Several men accused him of unwanted advances going back years. In 2023, he was found not guilty, but the trial revealed a long pattern of questionable behavior behind closed doors. By 2025, Spacey's name is rarely mentioned in Hollywood. No new projects, no cameos, no redemption arc. Harvey Weinstein's power and silence. He was Hollywood's ultimate power broker. If you wanted an Oscar, you probably worked with him. He ran Miramax, produced critical hits like Pulp Fiction and Shakespeare in Love, and made or broke careers. For decades, his power went unchecked, and people stayed silent. That all ended in October 2017. The New York Times published a detailed article accusing Weinstein was accused of long-term misconduct and quietly settling complaints over the years. Within days, The New Yorker followed with its own expose, including on-record accounts of coercive behavior and serious violations. Soon, over 80 women came forward. actresses, assistants, models, interns. Big names like Gwyneth Paltrow, Salma Hayek, and Lupita Nyong'o added their voices. Many said he lured them to hotel rooms under the guise of meetings, then assaulted or harassed them. Weinstein denied most of it but was fired from the Weinstein Company almost immediately. The Academy expelled him. BAFTA suspended his membership. The Screen Actors Guild removed him. Hollywood, which once protected him, now ran for cover. The details were horrifying. NDAs were used to buy silence. Assistants were allegedly made to help set up his meetings. For years, his behavior was whispered about but never challenged, until it couldn't be ignored. In 2020, a jury in New York convicted Weinstein on charges related to forcible misconduct and non-consensual acts. He was sentenced to 23 years in prison. In 2022, Los Angeles charged him again. That trial led to another conviction in 2023, adding 16 more years. He'll be over 90 before he's eligible for release, if he lives that long. Weinstein's fall also triggered something bigger. The number sign Me Too movement exploded into mainstream culture. Other powerful men, directors, executives, actors, were suddenly held accountable. He wasn't just a man who abused power, he was the system, protected by it, enabled by it, and finally undone by the voices that refused to stay quiet. He built an empire on silence, fear, and control. But in the end, he couldn't silence everyone. D. Koch's secret double life. In Singapore, D. Koch was a household name. He built a loyal audience on YouTube, worked as a popular radio DJ, and made brand deals left and right. His content was funny, sharp, and made to feel personal. That's what made the 2020 allegations so shocking. In August of that year, multiple young men came forward online. They accused D. Koch of sending inappropriate messages, engaging in manipulative behavior, and offering money in exchange for explicit interactions. Screenshots and voice messages quickly spread across social media. Several of the accusers were underage at the time of contact. At first, D. Koch denied the claims. He said the messages were fake or taken out of context. But then more proof appeared. Long message threads, audio recordings, and consistent patterns. The evidence was overwhelming. His radio station, Power 98, suspended him. Sponsors disappeared. His social media presence went silent. In 2021, authorities formally charged him with the exploitation of a minor and the production of obscene films. In court, it came out that he had stored explicit videos on his phone. He had arranged to meet teenage boys and pressured them online. These weren't just allegations anymore, they were facts backed by a criminal investigation. In August 2022, D. Koch pled guilty. He received 32 weeks in jail. During sentencing, the judge said he abused his position of influence and acted with clear intent. After his release, he didn't return to content creation. No apologies, no comeback video, just total silence. What makes his story so disturbing is how carefully he built his image. He marketed himself as trustworthy, even progressive, someone young fans could relate to. Meanwhile, behind the screen, he was using that trust to manipulate people too scared to speak up. Mr. Beast's image under fire. He was seen as the internet's good guy. Mr. Beast, aka Jimmy Donaldson, gave away houses, paid for surgeries, and helped thousands of people. His videos felt positive, clean, and drama-free. But in late 2024, things changed. A group of contestants from his big reality show Beast Games filed a lawsuit. They said the filming conditions were rough and the work environment felt toxic. Some claimed crew members were rude, and others said they didn't feel safe on set. Mr. Beast wasn't accused directly, but the lawsuit named his company and Amazon. An investigation followed. By November 2024, the results were public. No proof was found that Mr. Beast knew about any serious misconduct. But the report confirmed there were problems.
Some staff had crossed the line. A few people were fired. Mr. Beast's team added new rules, set up a hotline, and brought in better managers. Fans had mixed reactions. Some said he couldn't control everything. Others thought he should have responded more clearly. Then people online started digging. They pointed out how some friends in older videos had quietly disappeared. Some remembered challenges that seemed too intense. A few clips, once funny, now felt awkward. Mr. Beast stayed quiet. No big post, no full statement. Just a quick mention that he was working on things behind the scenes. He kept uploading. Views stayed high. But something felt different. Comments got sharper. Viewers asked more questions. The shine wasn't gone, but it wasn't untouchable anymore. For years, Mr. Beast built a name on trust, kindness, and massive giving. That's why this hit harder. It wasn't one huge scandal. It was the shift in how people saw him. He's still huge, still respected, but fans are watching more closely now. And when your whole brand is about doing the right thing, people expect you to handle the tough stuff the same way. In 1921, a young actress named Virginia Rappe died under mysterious circumstances at a party hosted by silent film star Roscoe "Fatty" Arbuckle. This controversy was just the beginning. For over a century, Hollywood has been a breeding ground for disturbing rumors that turned out to be all too real. Today we're pulling back the curtain on Tinseltown's darkest truths. The casting couch, early Hollywood's open secret. The term casting couch emerged in the 1920s, referring to a troubling practice where influential men took advantage of aspiring actors for inappropriate favors in exchange for roles. Louis B. Mayer, co-founder of MGM Studios, was notorious for this behavior. Mayer held private meetings with young actresses, often leading to uncomfortable situations. In 1935, dancer Patricia Douglas attended an MGM party where she was reportedly a victim of misconduct by a studio salesman. Despite filing charges, the case was quickly buried. Joan Crawford, who started her career in the 1920s, spoke about her experiences years later. "I never slept with a man I didn't want to. No one ever made me do anything I didn't want to do." However, her words hinted at the pressures faced by many actresses. Marilyn Monroe once said, "Hollywood is a place where they'll pay you $1,000 for a kiss and 50 cents for your soul." This quote reflects the industry's moral bankruptcy. In 1937, child star Shirley Temple, then 9 years old, was inappropriately approached by MGM producer Arthur Freed. When she laughed at him, Freed reportedly exposed himself. Temple's mother quickly removed her from the situation. The silent film era saw its share of scandals too. The Fatty Arbuckle case in 1921 shocked the nation when actress Virginia Rappe died after a party at his hotel. Though Arbuckle was eventually acquitted, the incident shed light on Hollywood's darker side. By the 1930s, the Hays Code was introduced to clean up Hollywood's image. However, behind closed doors, the exploitation continued. Judy Garland's studio-enforced diet pills. Her road to stardom was paved with studio control and dangerous health practices. MGM signed Garland at 13 in 1935. From the start, studio head Louis B. Mayer criticized her weight, calling her "my little hunchback." By 1938, during the filming of Love Finds Andy Hardy, 16-year-old Garland was put on a strict diet. Studio doctors prescribed Benzedrine and amphetamine for weight loss and seconal barbiturate to help her sleep. This dangerous cocktail kick-started a lifelong struggle with addiction. Garland's daily meal often consisted of just soup, black coffee, and 80 cigarettes, along with the prescribed pills. During the filming of The Wizard of Oz in 1939, the studio wanted her to lose more weight. She was 17 and weighed 94 pounds. In 1943, while filming Girl Crazy, Garland collapsed on set multiple times due to exhaustion and malnutrition. The studio's response was to give her a brief rest before pushing her back to work. Garland later recalled, "They had us working days and nights on end. They'd give us pills to keep us on our feet long after we were exhausted. Then they'd take us to the studio hospital and knock us out with sleeping pills."
By 1947, Garland's health had deteriorated significantly. She attempted to end herself on the set of The Pirate. Despite this, MGM continued to push her, leading to her suspension in 1948 due to erratic behavior caused by addiction. "I was in the studio system for 15 years and I thought they were going to kill me," Garland said in a 1967 interview. She suffered numerous breakdowns and was admitted to sanitariums multiple times throughout her career. The long-term effects of this studio-enforced regimen were devastating. Garland struggled with addiction and health issues for the rest of her life. She died in 1969 at age 47 from an accidental overdose, a tragic end tied directly to the abusive practices she endured in her youth. Alfred Hitchcock's obsession with Tippi Hedren. His obsession with Tippi Hedren during the early 1960s revealed a dark side to the famed director. Hedren, a model-turned-actress, was discovered by Hitchcock in a TV commercial in 1961. He immediately signed her to a 7-year contract. Hedren's first role was in The Birds, 1963. During filming, Hitchcock's behavior became increasingly controlling. He dictated her wardrobe off-set and forbade her from socializing with the cast and crew. Hedren later stated, "Every time I'd be talking with a male member of the cast or crew, my next exchange with Hitchcock would be icy." The most harrowing incident occurred during the filming of the attic scene. Hedren was told mechanical birds would be used. Instead, live birds were thrown at her for 5 days straight. She suffered cuts, exhaustion, and a nervous breakdown. When a bird nearly pecked her eye, she snapped, "I think you got your scene, Mr. Hitchcock." In 1964, during the production of Marnie, Hitchcock's obsession intensified. He had a mask of Hedren's face made for his personal use and installed a secret door between his office and her dressing room. Hedren recounted a disturbing incident in her trailer. "He touched me inappropriately. It was uncomfortable and deeply unsettling. The harder I fought him, the more aggressive he became." After Hedren refused his advances, Hitchcock threatened to ruin her career. True to his word, he kept her under contract for 2 years without work, effectively stalling her career. Hitchcock's behavior wasn't limited to Hedren. Actress Diane Baker, who co-starred in Marnie, observed, "I saw Hitchcock verbally abuse Tippi and I was shocked." In 1966, Hedren finally broke free from her contract with Hitchcock. However, the director's influence in Hollywood made it difficult for her to find work. She later said, "He ruined my career, but he didn't ruin my life." Hedren kept silent about these experiences for decades, only speaking out in detail in her 2016 memoir, Tippi. Her story shed light on the abuse of power that was all too common in Hollywood during that era. Roman Polanski's assault case. On March 10, 1977, film director Roman Polanski, then 43, was arrested in Los Angeles. The charge, drugging and misconduct of a 13-year-old girl, Samantha Gailey, now Geimer. The incident occurred at actor Jack Nicholson's home during a photo shoot for French Vogue. According to court documents, Polanski gave Gailey champagne and part of a Quaalude. He then allegedly continued with inappropriate actions despite her objections. Gailey later testified, "I was mostly just on and off saying, 'No, stop,' but I was afraid." Polanski faced legal charges on multiple counts related to inappropriate conduct, including allegations involving the use of a controlled substance and misconduct with a minor. He initially pleaded not guilty to all charges, but later accepted a plea bargain. On August 8, 1977, Polanski pleaded guilty to unlawful activity with a minor. Per the plea deal, the probation report recommended probation. However, on the day of sentencing, February 1, 1978, Polanski fled to France. He had learned that the judge, Lawrence J. Rittenband, planned to sentence him to prison and subsequent deportation. France refused to extradite Polanski due to its limited extradition treaty with the U.S. Polanski continued his film career in Europe, even winning an Oscar for The Pianist in 2003, which he couldn't collect in person. In 2009, Polanski was arrested in Switzerland at the request of U.S. authorities. He spent 67 days in custody before being released and returning to France. Geimer, the victim, has since stated she forgives Polanski and believes the case should be dropped. In a 2013 interview, she said, "I'm not going to carry a bunch of resentment, and much worse things happen to people." Despite this, attempts to resolve the case have been unsuccessful. In 2017, Polanski's offer to return to the U.S. for time served was rejected by L.A. County Superior Court Judge Scott Gordon. As of 2024, Polanski remains a fugitive from the U.S. justice system. Rob Lowe's tape scandal. In July 1988, 24-year-old actor Rob Lowe became embroiled in a controversy that nearly derailed his career. The incident occurred during the Democratic National Convention in Atlanta, where Lowe was supporting presidential candidate Michael Dukakis. On the night of July 17th, Lowe met two young women at a bar and brought them back to his hotel room. Unbeknownst to Lowe, one of the women, 16-year-old Jan Parsons, was underage. The encounter was videotaped, creating what would become one of Hollywood's first celebrity intimacy tape controversies. The tape surfaced months later when Parsons' mother found it and reported it to the authorities. On February 24, 1989, the story broke in the media, causing immediate shockwaves in Hollywood and beyond. Lowe initially denied any wrongdoing, claiming he didn't know Parsons was underage. He stated, "I didn't ask for ID going into a club. It was Atlanta, the home of Coca-Cola, not the home of underage girls." The controversy had severe consequences for Lowe's career. He was dropped from several film projects and lost numerous endorsement deals. His appearance at the 1989 Academy Awards was met with open hostility from some attendees. Legal ramifications followed. Lowe faced criminal charges for misconduct with a minor and distributing explicit material. To avoid prosecution, he agreed to perform 20 hours of community service in his home state of Ohio. The incident also led to a civil lawsuit from Parsons' family, which was settled out of court for an undisclosed sum. As part of the settlement, Lowe was required to publicly apologize. In the years following the scandal, Lowe worked to rebuild his career and reputation. He entered rehab for alcohol addiction in 1990, a move he credits with helping him turn his life around. Woody Allen's relationship with Soon-Yi Previn. In January 1992, Mia Farrow discovered unclothed photos of her adopted daughter, Soon-Yi Previn, in Woody Allen's apartment. Allen, then 56, had been in a relationship with Farrow for 12 years. Soon-Yi was 21 at the time and had been adopted by Farrow and her ex-husband Andre Previn years earlier. The discovery sent shockwaves through Hollywood and the public. Allen confirmed the relationship in August 1992, stating, "I'm thrilled." The admission came amid a bitter custody battle between Allen and Farrow over their 3 children. Allen's film Husbands and Wives, released in September 1992, became unintentionally controversial due to its plot similarities to the real-life scandal. The film's premiere was marked by protests and media frenzy. In 1993, a judge in the custody case called Allen's behavior with Soon-Yi grossly inappropriate. The court denied Allen visitation rights with his daughter Dylan and limited contact with his son Satchel, now Ronan Farrow. Despite the controversy, Allen and Soon-Yi married in Venice on December 23, 1997. Allen was 62, Soon-Yi 27. The ceremony was small, with only a handful of guests present. In a rare 2015 interview with NPR, Allen addressed the relationship's beginnings. "I was paternal. She responded to someone paternal." This statement further fueled critics who found the relationship's power dynamics disturbing. The scandal significantly impacted Allen's career. Several actors, including Greta Gerwig and Timothée Chalamet, later expressed regret for working with him. Amazon Studios terminated a 4-picture deal with Allen in 2019, citing renewed allegations of misconduct by Dylan Farrow. As of 2024, Allen and Soon-Yi remain married and have 2 adopted daughters. The controversy continues to spark debates about power, consent, and morality in Hollywood relationships. R. Kelly's illegal marriage to Aaliyah. On August 31, 1994, R&B singer R. Kelly, then 27, illegally married his 15-year-old protégée, Aaliyah, in a secret ceremony in Rosemont, Illinois. The marriage certificate falsely listed Aaliyah's age as 18. Kelly had met Aaliyah 3 years earlier when she was 12. He became her mentor, producer, and lead songwriter for her debut album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, released in May 1994. The album's title now seems disturbingly prophetic. Vibe magazine published a copy of the marriage certificate in December 1994. The revelation sparked immediate controversy. Aaliyah's family was reportedly furious and moved quickly to have the marriage annulled in February 1995. Kelly's former tour manager, Demetrius Smith, later admitted to obtaining a fake ID for Aaliyah. In the 2019 documentary Surviving R. Kelly, Smith stated, "I was in the room when they got married. I'm not proud of that." Both Kelly and Aaliyah initially denied the marriage. In a 1994 interview, Aaliyah said, "I'm not married. That's all there is to it." She maintained this stance until she died in a plane crash in 2001. The illegal marriage came to light again during Kelly's 2019 arrest on federal charges. Prosecutors alleged Kelly bribed a government official in Illinois to create a fake ID for Aaliyah. In 2021, during Kelly's exploitation trial, a witness testified that Kelly married Aaliyah because he believed she was pregnant with his child. The marriage would have protected Kelly from charges. Kelly was ultimately convicted on all 9 counts against him, including racketeering and exploitation. The illegal marriage to Aaliyah was a key part of the prosecution's case. Harvey Weinstein's decades of serious misconduct. On October 5, 2017, the New York Times published an exposé detailing nearly 3 decades of coercion allegations against Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. The article, by Jodi Kantor and Megan Twohey, cited interviews with numerous women in the film industry. Among the first accusers were actress Ashley Judd and former Weinstein employee Laura Madden. Judd recounted a 1997 incident where Weinstein invited her to his hotel room and asked for a massage. Madden described similar experiences in the early 1990s. The article revealed that Weinstein had reached at least 8 settlements with women who accused him of unwanted physical contact and advances. These settlements, dating back to 1990, were often accompanied by non-disclosure agreements. 5 days after the Times article, The New Yorker published Ronan Farrow's investigation, which included 13 more women's accounts of alleged abuse by Weinstein. 3 women accused Weinstein of SA. Actress Rose McGowan, who had alluded to her experience for years, publicly accused Weinstein of serious misconduct on October 12, 2017. She stated she was paid $100,000 in 1997 to sign a non-disclosure agreement. By October 31st, over 80 women had come forward with allegations against Weinstein. The list included high-profile actresses like Gwyneth Paltrow, Angelina Jolie, and Salma Hayek. Weinstein was dismissed from the Weinstein Company on October 8, 2017. He was later arrested and charged in New York on May 25, 2018, for serious misconduct. On February 24, 2020, Weinstein was found guilty of 2 serious offenses and sentenced to 23 years in prison. Bill Cosby's serial assaults. For decades, Bill Cosby was known as America's dad, beloved for his role on The Cosby Show. However, beneath this wholesome image lurked a serial predator whose crimes spanned half a century. The first public accusation against Cosby came in 2005 when Andrea Constand filed a lawsuit alleging he drugged and acted inappropriately toward her in 2004. During the case, 13 other women came forward with similar stories. The suit was settled out of court in 2006 for $338 million. Despite these allegations, Cosby's career continued largely unaffected until October 16, 2014. During a stand-up performance in Philadelphia, comedian Hannibal Buress seriously referred to Cosby, rekindling public interest in the allegations against him. In the following months, dozens of women came forward with stories of coercion dating back to the 1960s. Many described a similar pattern. Cosby would offer them drinks, which were allegedly drugged, and then SA them while they were incapacitated. On December 30, 2015, Cosby was arrested and charged with 3 counts of aggravated indecent moves against Andrea Constand. This was the first criminal case against Cosby, as most other allegations fell outside the statute of limitations. Cosby's first trial in 2017 ended in a mistrial due to a hung jury. However, in a retrial on April 26, 2018, Cosby was found guilty on all 3 counts. On September 25, 2018, he was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in state prison. During the trial, 5 other women testified about their experiences with Cosby, establishing a pattern of behavior. One of these women, Janice Dickinson, testified that Cosby coerced her in 1982 after giving her a pill. Cosby's conviction was overturned by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court on June 30, 2021, due to a violation of his due process rights. He was released from prison the same day, having served nearly 3 years. Kevin Spacey's predatory behavior. On October 29, 2017, actor Anthony Rapp alleged that Kevin Spacey made a misappropriate advance toward him in 1986, when Rapp was 14 and Spacey was 26. This accusation, published in a BuzzFeed article, marked the beginning of Spacey's downfall. Spacey responded on Twitter, claiming no memory of the incident, but offering an apology. In the same statement, he came out as gay, a move widely criticized as an attempt to deflect from the allegations. Following Rapp's accusation, numerous other men came forward with similar stories. On November 1, 2017, actor Roberto Cavazos alleged that Spacey groped him in the mid-2000s at the Old Vic Theatre in London, where Spacey was artistic director from 2004 to 2015. The Old Vic conducted an internal investigation revealing 20 personal testimonies of alleged inappropriate behavior by Spacey between 1995 and 2013. Many of these incidents occurred on the theater's premises. On November 3, 2017, Netflix cut all ties with Spacey, halting production on House of Cards and shelving his film Gore. Ridley Scott reshot Spacey's scenes in All the Money in the World, replacing him with Christopher Plummer just weeks before the film's release. In 2018, Spacey was charged with indecent conduct in Nantucket, Massachusetts, for allegedly groping an 18-year-old man in 2016. The case was later dropped when the accuser invoked his Fifth Amendment rights during a hearing about his missing phone. In May 2022, Spacey was charged with 4 counts of SA against 3 men in the UK, dating back to incidents between 2005 and 2013. In July 2023, Spacey was found not guilty of these charges in a UK court. Despite the court verdict, Spacey's career has been irreparably damaged. His last major film role was in 2018's Billionaire Boys Club, which earned only $618 on its opening day.